fact, I think everybody here knows the story, but maybe not. So we started Stronger Together back at the beginning of the first lockdown to help business owners survive what was going on, and we've gone from strength to strength. So I'm really pleased to welcome you all here this morning. And the whole ethos is to collaborate and share and help each other. And what we do each month is we get somebody that we can spotlight and shares their wisdom to help us all as business owners. So this month we are joined by the lovely Emma Rundle. I hope I'm pointing it the right way, because that would be really look stupid if not. So Emma is, well, a content creator extraordinaire, to be fair. She is absolutely incredible, and I am really pleased that she's been able to join us this month and share her wisdom about how we can maximize our content. So Emma, over to you, my lovely.
Okay, well, so let's just have a quick chat about what we've got, who we've got here, and what we mean by content. Let's just get our context straight. So I call myself a content writer now more than a copywriter, purely because content obviously is something that people kind of understand. I did introduce myself as a copywriter once, actually, and got asked where I did my law degree, but not that sort of copyright. I'm not that clever. So basically, from my point of view, I actually work with a lot of business owners who obviously need to produce content, especially more so, I guess, over the last 18 months, 2 years, because we've all been operating from behind our lovely screens. So it's just about keeping people visible. It's also about the person themselves, though, not just the business. It's about people having an online brand, I guess you'd call it, a profile that, you know, people can sort of recognize, and perhaps they are building up their sort of personal reputation, or their position as an expert in their field, really. So that's the sort of thing. And I write everything from kind of blogs to newsletters, and I can help people out with website copy, all that sort of stuff. But in the past, I've worked in the big old corporate world, and I used to do communications and writing then as well. So I would do the internal comms was my kind of bread and butter. So I was helping write newsletters and internal stuff, conferencing, sort of PowerPoint decks and things, but anything where we were trying to get the management kind of voice out to the people, and then eventually ended up running the whole team on that. So I've got a nice overview of how the various different comms functions come together, from investor relations to marketing comms, and obviously the internal comms as well. So there's quite a good business link there for me, which has proven actually really useful, because I get where the message comes in, and right from business strategy down, you know, that's the path that needs to be taken by the information. So it's lovely to see some faces that I don't recognize, as well as faces that I do. This morning, I was going to start off with a little quiz, just for some fun, but also because some of the things I've come up with are really quite good to focus the mind a little bit before we start and thinking about our own content. Then I've got some slides to take you through, but don't worry, I will keep them interesting. And then we have a little live exercise. So the end part of the slides are me taking you through a working example of a certain way of writing, which will enable you to bring any topic, like literally challenge me, and you can get any topic back to your business message. And that's the trick, you see, because without being too clickbaity, because it can be if you don't do a good job of it, but you should be able to pick up anything that generates interest and engagement, and then bring it back to your own message, because that way, you know, you're able to piggyback. Not all of us work in sexy industries, and, you know, often therefore, you know, I can't post up lovely pictures of plates of food or whatever it be, or celebrity, you know. So you need to find a way of making your what you're writing about attractive to people, and that's some of the tricks. But then once you learn those tricks, any topic is your topic, so it helps with variety as well. So that's the plan, and then you guys can go and have a go at recreating your own version of that in some breakout groups, and then we'll have a Q&A, I think, at the end. So I'll crack on it. I think some people are still arriving, but there's no prizes, so don't get too competitive. But if people join in halfway, they join in halfway. Hopefully all of you, and if you can give me an actual thumbs up, when you hover at the bottom of your screen, you've got a reactions button. When you click on it, it gives you sort of 5 or 6 common reactions. Okay, so we're going to be looking at those for the answers to this quiz. Okay, and Julia's going to make a note of anyone who's a real superstar. So we've got I'm going to give you multiple choice answers. You're going to get 3 options to pick from. If you want the first option, and I will remind you of this, first option is the heart, the second option is the party popper, and the third option is the surprise face. Okay, so bearing that in mind, and I'll remind you in a second. Here comes the first question. Okay, how many people only read a headline? Is it 2 out of 10? The heart, if you think it's 2 out of 10. The party popper, if you think it's 6 out of 10. And the surprise face, if you think it's 9 out of 10. How many people only read a headline? Got lots of surprise faces. Oh, a couple of hearts. Okay, so a couple of people think it's 2 out of 10. Most people think it's 9 out of 10. It's 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10 people only read a headline. That's a bit scary. That's Neil Patel. NeilPatel.com is a great marketing guy. You've probably already heard of him, but he's good to look at his website now and again for some quite interesting topics and information. But yeah, so that's just the first thing to park in your mind. Only 6 out of 10 people. 6 out of 10 people, sorry, only read your headline. They don't go on. So we are fighting against a sort of half-shut door when we put content out, but we'll come up with how we can avoid that being an issue. Okay, so next question. At what percentage does your email list data decay? In other words, at what percentage over the course of a year does your email data that you've got on your mailing list sort of become out of date and a bit old? Is it 25%, which is the heart, 50%, which is the party popper, and 75%, which is the surprise face? So how much of that data is likely to come out of date within a year? Okay, so we've got loads of hearts, we've got a party popper, and we've got a surprise face. Okay, well, Giancarlo, you're good with your surprise face. 75% of your email list data, if you like, your sign up list, can become out of date. Now, Julia, you might want to chip in on this just to put some context. I'll hand over to you to say some bits.
Yeah, obviously I love data. That's sort of my sort of bag, and especially CRMs and email lists and all of that good stuff. And I questioned that statistic, didn't I, when we had a little chat before the session, Emma? But I think that the statistic is most relevant when you have people on your email list that are employed by other businesses rather than business owners, because people who are employed by other businesses are going to be moving from one job to another, or may have been on furlough and that type of thing. Whereas when you have a list that's full of business owners, I think that we would see that percentage be far, far lower, even than the 25%, because typically a business owner will keep their email address through the lifetime of their business. So I think we just need to have that in context, but just thinking it's just incredibly high number. But that is the beauty of doing something like a newsletter, because not only are you sharing content with people that are on your list, but you're actually able to keep that list up to date, because if you use something like MailChimp, then you're going to get hard bounces and you will actually see that somebody is no longer working somewhere. And I did this for a client 3 or 4 years ago. Instead of seeing that as a negative, we saw it as a positive. So what I did, I went to LinkedIn, I saw where they'd moved to. I advised my client that somebody on the list had moved to this company, with another blue chip company, and they made contact with them, and they made contact just at the right time. It was literally, oh, I'm pleased to see on LinkedIn that you've been promoted to da-da-da-da. And actually they got a £500,000 deal out of making contact with that person. So try not to see bounces or data going out of date as a bad thing. Try and flip the mindset and actually see that as a positive, because it can be.
And that's a really good point, actually. Don't be scared to interrogate your data. And, I think a lot of us, it's easy to play a numbers game, what we would call a vanity metric, because you love the fact that you've got, 500 people on your list. But actually, and I'm the same, Julia, every time I get an unsubscribe or a bounce, I like that, because I think, okay, that's good. I don't want to pay MailChimp to send you stuff that you're not really interested in. And then then that as that sweeps through and you get some more signups, you're improving the quality of that data and the chances of people doing business with you off the back of what you're sending out each time. So that's a really good thing to bear in mind, and it is very relevant, of course, to maximising your content, because there's no point in sending something that no one reads. You know, and you want to look for your open rates. And the good thing about MailChimp, as Julia said, is it will give you that information. So I think the average is really low on email newsletters, and we'll talk a bit more about them later. But you know, if there's an 18 or so percent, and MailChimp does a really nice thing, actually, it gives you a little bar chart, doesn't it? So it shows you what the open rate of your campaign is against the industry average and against your own at sort of benchmarks of what your normal open rates are. So and I got a lovely 52% open rate on a recent campaign, which I was very pleased with, and that was actually off the back of doing a little bit of A/B testing on the title. But yeah, so you know, you can do it, but it is all about, again, that's that headline piece, isn't it? You know, how many people only read the headline? You need to break through that barrier, really. So we'll talk a bit more in detail about that. Right, next question. This is a good one. Which was the top performing platform for content marketing in 2020? Okay. You will give me a heart if you think it was TikTok, a party popper if you think it was LinkedIn, and a surprise face if you think it was Facebook. So heart for TikTok, party popper for LinkedIn, and surprise face for Facebook. So we've got a lot of hearts, we've got surprise faces, we've got a good mixture there, actually. We're very spread. It was TikTok. Let's caveat quickly before we you have to know your audience. Clearly, you know, lots of us who are maybe business to business, not going to be making up dances on TikTok, much as my kids would love me to do so. No. So it's about knowing your avatar. And in actual fact, I think TikTok is an interesting one to keep half an eye on, because, you know, ultimately they want to conquer the market. They are probably going to come up with ways that, you know, businesses can do that. And I'm sure, like everything, there's space for a mix. However, the bits I also want to share with you on this one are equally interesting in my book. LinkedIn was third. You're going to ask me what was second now, and I can't remember because I didn't write it down. That was silly. Oh, no, I did. It was Google. So the Google My Business, which has just changed its name handily again. I can't remember what it's changed it to. It's something similar, but Google My Business was the second one. So LinkedIn was third. I was really surprised by that. Out of the top 5, Facebook wasn't there. So this is really interesting stuff, because YouTube and Pinterest were the other two. And obviously, again, it's about your audience. Pinterest is obviously a lovely platform if you're image driven. So if that's the sort of business that you have, I can see why people would want to use it, because it's more interactive, I suppose, perhaps than Instagram. And YouTube, obviously, you know, is great if you have a YouTube channel. I know Julia does, and I've got some videos that I've started collecting on a channel on YouTube, and you know, it's a great way for people to follow what you're saying. So interesting stuff, always worth keeping in mind. But just to quickly say that, in my opinion, and it is just my opinion, and I'm not a social media expert, I'm a content expert, but I would say it's definitely worth picking your channel and doing one properly. I wouldn't be scattergunning yourself across all the channels, because quite frankly, you'll get no work done. You've just spent your entire time posting on social media. So remember your avatar. That's the really key message there. Right, next question. We've got 2 more left. What percentage of B2B marketers say that LinkedIn consistently generates leads? So a heart if you think it's 33%. A party popper if you think it's 62%. And a surprise face if you think it's 84%. What percentage of B2B marketers say LinkedIn consistently generates leads? Is it about a third, about 2/3, or nearly all of them? We've got loads of party poppers. I need to check my page. That's the middle one, 62%. And you're right, it is 62%. So 2020 saw a 55% increase in conversations among connections on LinkedIn, and that's a statistic from Hootsuite, so they know their stuff. It is massively powerful if you use it the right way. And then Oh no, that is my last question. Sorry, my stat looked like another question. Sorry, but that's so. Anyway, hopefully, what you see now is a good spread across different aspects of content writing. Give you a feel for what's going on, and again, just start to think about doing something that suits your avatar and suits your personality as well, because that has to be a part of it, and doing that really well rather than sort of trying to be all things to all people. I'm going to share my screen. To share my presentation. Just bear with me a second, I just set it up as an actual presentation. Right. Okay. We're going to take you through some slides now. So this is the bit about, let's do some positioning, and then towards the end we'll actually try and put some of that stuff into practice. Okay, let me know if you can see that. Good. Okay, right. I've got visibility on Julia, so that's good because she can start waving frantically if anything's not working. Right, so how to create engaging content. Engagement is the key. Engagement is the key for several reasons. One, because you do want your audience to think, feel, and do things as a result of reading your content. And secondly, because if you're on LinkedIn, and that is my primary channel as business-to-business writer, engagement is worth its weight in terms of your reach of your content and so on. Right, this is what Zoom often does to me. It won't let me advance my slides. There we go. Right, here's a great stat, and it is a little bit old. I'm just going to move myself over because I'm covering that up a little bit. Information overload, 2.5 quintillion, I didn't even know that was a thing, bytes of data are produced every day. 2018, can you imagine what that's like now? I couldn't find anything more recent, but there's a lot of noise. There is a lot of noise. So as content writers, we need to break through that noise. So we can talk a bit about how we do that. And really for me, and this is something I'm really building, everything I do around, is authenticity. It's just bringing you, your brand, your service delivery, that what you solve for your clients, is bringing that to the forefront. There's a huge issue around trust of brands. We know this because people kind of know these days what advertising and that type of marketing is all about. We're much more savvy as buyers, so the buyer journey is really different now. We don't respond, and you'll probably have come across this on LinkedIn anyway. We don't respond to the hard sales techniques anymore. We want to be entertained, or we want value added by what we read and the content that we look at. And there's loads of statistics about the sort of content that people like to see, and the impact that can have. Lots of people make their decisions now. I think it's about 70% of buyers make their decision on who they're going to do business with based on the content before they even speak to a person. So your content is really out there, and it is really, lighting the way for you. So authenticity is the key. But what is authenticity? So storytelling is an approach. I've got a client actually who's a coach, and we do a lot of content for LinkedIn and blogging, and she gets good engagement. But she recently took part in the this is me, was that the hashtag? It was picture of, or this little girl is me, I think. Little picture of her as a child, and then a story about her life. It's been quite a popular trend on LinkedIn and probably other places. But she basically just did tell her story, and again, you can pick what you're comfortable with in terms of sharing, but she got a reach of like 19,000, which is immense. I mean, that's almost viral for LinkedIn, really. It's a good, so it just goes to show people want to know who the person is behind the business. They love a personal story. So just bearing in mind that, what goes on the internet stays on the internet. Have a think about that, what you can share. You don't have to be warts and all. There are elements of our lives that we can talk about, whether it's just our business life. And, there's different ways for different people, I think. But the use of tone is a massive part of this. And it's about the way that we talk. And, we can write in a very kind of business kind of technical way where we're all about the detail and about the buzzwords, and we probably won't get much, if any, engagement. Or we can write as a person. Again, people do business with people, so we're talking to people and we are a person. If that comes through in our tone and we're relaxed and friendly and informative, then we will definitely up our engagement. So that's another thing just to think about when you're putting a post together. So I've said about the balance here of personal and professional. I do think that LinkedIn is changing. I do have a somewhat, and people might say, controversial view on people posting certain types of posts. I think there are places we shouldn't go in terms of leveraging a business message. I don't know whether you remember, there was a footballer who collapsed on the pitch not long ago with a heart attack. I think it wasn't the World Cup. I think it was before that, wasn't it? But anyway, I did see that a couple of people used the image of him on sort of lying on the floor on social media, and then tried to and they got absolutely flayed by their audience, because basically they were saying, well, you're using someone's misfortune and a sensationalist picture to attract attention and to sort of farm likes, really. So, we do get posts that are genuinely, about misfortunate events in life, and I think sometimes they work, but I think it's a really sensitive place to go, and you need to think really carefully about what you're trying to achieve from that. If you're genuinely trying to raise the profile of something, great, but if you're in any way selling off the back of it, I think it's one to leave alone. So it's just interesting, and do look at the sorts of posts that attract you, and the sorts of posts that have obviously attracted others, and just sort of bear that in mind when you're thinking about how and what to post. Tell, don't sell is a great little phrase. It's really easy to remember, and everything nowadays is social selling, and that means relationship building. It means this sort of richness of content I've talked about so far. It doesn't mean saying I am doing this, and if you sign up for this, then I'll that is all just too straight down the line. It's too salesy. People feel pitched at and they don't like it, and the engagement is low. And if you see posts on LinkedIn like that, and you look, I can guarantee you there'll be a couple of likes, very few comments, unless it's someone who is probably sort of really in the public eye and obviously already has that sort of trust going on. And then we come to the different types of way of writing. So I've put blog here, thought leader versus topic blog, but I mean, it could be a simple post as well on LinkedIn. The thought leader stuff is when we start to actually give people pause for thought. So if you're writing something that is going to sort of challenge some common thinking, or even just talking about a way that you do something that might be different, that might have yielded good results for you, it doesn't have to be groundbreaking original research, which some people tend to think it does. It doesn't have to be that, but it does need to be putting a very specific to you point across. A lot of the thought leadership stuff that I write for people, in order to kind of establish them as an expert in their field, is their thinking, but it does I often bring in sources to back that up, because you need that credibility, you need that sense that the area that you are marketing in, and the area that you're discussing and commenting on. So thought leadership tends to be, I'd say, 800 to 1100 or plus words. It tends to be the sort of thing that you might send on to your sort of distribution list, and in a minute I'll come to something that talks about that. It's not at all, you might not even mention your products, but you are going to or services, but you are going to be sort of helping people through something that is a common pain point, but you're going to really be delving into that real deep dive into what that issue is. That's thought leadership, and it is proven to increase trust, which is why I really like it, because it definitely, there's some research done recently, I think it was Gallup did a poll, and there's also a guy called Edelman in the States, Edelman. If you look up the Edelman Trust Barometer, if you're interested in this type of thing, it talks about how the public's perception of trust of anybody in charge, so your governments and your sort of big organizations, has been waning for years, but is really waning at the moment. And I think we all know why, because there's a lot going on that's difficult for them to control, but the actual trust in industry is on the increase, because people see the CEOs and the C-suite as people who can really actually genuinely influence things. And even as a small business, a business owner operator, we can be a part of that. We can put out at our level and to our audience what we believe is the right way to do things, and why we believe that we are, making a difference in whatever way. And I think that's the important thing to remember. You don't have to be an industry leader or a blue chip CEO or someone with a huge following to do thought leadership. You really don't. It's just a different way of putting stuff across. And the topic blogs that I referred to there is just my name for a kind of 500-word blog that just gets a point across about something that you want your audience to listen to. And they're good because they're quick and easy to read, and they're good fodder, and we'll come to how we use them and repurpose them next. Okay, so a bit more inspiration then. So I'm concerned that you guys are getting a grey box over the top of the words. Is that happening, or can you see that whole slide? You can. Okay, that's good. It's just where my window is for Zoom. Okay, so this is a way. Okay, let's have a quick show of hands. I can't see everyone, but just give me give me a chat, a little comment in chat. I'll just open up my chat so I can see. A yes if you find that you sit down at your desk to write something and you, within about the first 5 minutes, have either started looking at what's going on out the window, or you're trying to decide, actually I wanted to write about that. But give me a yes if you find that you have that struggle when it comes to writing about your business. Is it that you just become overwhelmed, it goes on the too difficult pile? There's a few yeses. Okay, you can do me a no if you want, and that's fair enough. If you're quite focused and planned, you might have a no. So we've got kind of a half and half mixture. Okay, not always. Well done, Jim. Straight down the middle. I like that. Okay, good. Well, look, this is a way, and even if you don't struggle with that, this is still a good tool to use, because what it means is that you can find a quick and easy way of actually just giving your brain permission to separate out some different schools of thought in terms of content, some different topic buckets, as we like to call them. And there's a good, I reckon that bucket's probably from B&Q. For those of us in the UK, I think they used to sell them for 99p at the door, didn't they? Anyway, just digressing slightly. The topic buckets that I'd like you to kind of have a think about, and this is really good if you're at the beginning of the month, if you're planning your content, is just put some headings on a page, and just write these titles on them. I mean, really, all you're doing here is you're trying to compartmentalize the sorts of things that people want to hear about. And they're also very broad, and that's intentional, because I don't want you to feel that you've got to go down a certain route. You don't. You can interpret these in whatever way you choose, but simply by compartmentalizing things, it makes our brains find it. Our brains find it easier just to go, okay, well, right, let's just think about this for a minute. So, under the me, it might be, what makes you tick. It might be what you've done that morning. It might be, what you were thinking about working on today. It can be literally anything, but it's something that comes from you, from here, something that resonates and is important. Okay, so the really nice things about this, and thinking back to what we talked about in terms of what makes people engage, might be what you've been thinking about on your dog walk this morning, or it can be something quite personal. And yeah, I think that is a really good way of just starting a conversation going. So that's your me bucket. You've got my services. So this is, I'm thinking about the business here. It could be products, obviously, but it's about thinking about the different services you provide. And so again, if you're planning a sequence of posts, then you might want to put something in perhaps on a weekly basis. Each of your services or products you could feature it on each week, for example, over the course of a month, or more or less frequently. But that's about just telling people something about what you do, not selling it. It's definitely not selling it, but it's saying, I love my job because, for example. Okay, now I put a post up the other day actually about loving my job, and it really got some great engagement. And it was a storytelling type post. It was quite a sort of personal angle, but it was work related. So I think you attack two paths by doing that. And actually, if you've had the title under my services, I love my job because, then that can get some people over the hurdle of not wanting to brag or boast about what they do, or not having that thought process of, well, why does anyone care about this? That's one of the things that stops business owners from doing their own content. Why do people care what I think about this? Well, okay, but you've got followers, right? They do care, they're following you. So they do want to know what you think. They are interested in you. They either like you as a person or they like the service that you provide. So if you cover off both angles, which you will with this list, then you're going to hit their kind of engagement and interest factor at some point. My business life, yeah, as I've said before, you know, it's talking a little bit about a day in the life of. It could be anything from some pictures on Instagram that show what goes on behind the scenes if you are a product focused business, or even actually if you're a services business and you work with people and you might have, you know, some stories to tell about that. So that's a kind of catch-all for anything that's business related. My clients, obviously, case studies, testimonials, even features of your clients and what they do and what their business is. You know, everyone likes a little promo now and again, and what better way to do it than to, you know, put someone up there. And of course it's that give and take thing then, and it's building the relationship. So that's quite a nice one to think about as well. And my thoughts, well, that could be pretty close to me, but actually I love the idea now and again of something that you think and or live by, and that people might want to adopt, or that they might want to share their version of. One thing I do say to people, and it's the only way I'm a little bit of a party pooper on content, is don't share too many memes. So they're lovely and they are sometimes the right thing to share. Like I love a Monday morning meme, I have to say, because it kind of gets me. But all you're doing by sharing a meme, just as a flat share, is making the meme more well known. You're not actually telling anyone anything about you. So when I say don't share, I mean don't share without putting them in your context. Okay, so always add value when you're sending out any post. Add value, and just put your own sort of take on that, or link it to. Julia does this really well, actually. Link it to your morning. Like you have lovely pictures always on your Instagram and stuff of your dog walks or your office or a lovely day or blossom. You remember them. I do remember them. So you know, I think that's the thing, is to put it in context. Don't just bombard your audience with motivational memes, because they don't really push your agenda, is the bottom line. Okay, so a bit of party people there for me, but I get frustrated when that's all people do, because it's too easy. It's lazy posting, really. Anyway, right, now this is the top tip, and you're all going to go, oh God, I'm not doing that, but I really think you should. If you have been to an event, or you have had a really inspirational meeting with a client, anything that's fired you up, okay, grab that energy, right? I won't make you do it live, but I will make you pick your phone up and do a piece to camera and record it, and then please try and post it. That energy that comes from you being inspired, particularly if it's an industry event or a conference or something that your audience might benefit from, pick your phone up, do yourself a quick over enthusiastic video, because don't forget, most of us on here are Brits. When we're Brits, we are always under enthusiastic. So what we think is crazy is normal when you see it on a playback, even to Brits. But also that enthusiasm will massively capture your audience, and you will do one of the best videos you've done, because you won't be thinking about what you're saying. You'll just be sharing something in the moment. Okay. Now, if you've been to a conference or an event or done something that's given you takeaways, share them. So that's the context. So online, on your phone, video. I've just been to this conference. It's been amazing. Listen, I'm just going to share my 3 top takeaways, because you guys, you know, you're going to benefit from this. It was just amazing for anyone that couldn't be there. This was said, that was said, and that was said. And I think they are things that I'm going to go back now and I'm going to really kind of chase for my business or for my clients. It's hard to be specific when it's so general a point, but you get what I'm saying. Okay, you will capture something that is worth its weight in gold, and people will love it. So try it, and you don't have to post it, but I'll be very cross if I find out you've tried it and you haven't posted it, because it is worth doing. So there's a really good, but you have, you know, in the moment is the thing. And don't worry if you're falling over words, nobody cares. That's how you talk normally, so they'll love that. Right, another couple of quick checks. I need to watch my time, Julia, do I? Oh, you're on mute, I can't hear you.
Sarah has a question.
Oh, sorry, go for it.
Hi, sorry, just a really quick question. So I kind of post to LinkedIn and Instagram where the audiences are very different. So would I need to do 2 separate videos?
No. If they're on a work topic, LinkedIn can stand it. Some of them need to get over themselves on there, but it can definitely stand it. If it's work related, and don't forget, everybody's LinkedIn world is slightly different, isn't it? If you've got the right followers and you're following the right people and your topic is up and it's on topic, a bit of energy on LinkedIn was never a bad thing. Because it keeps everyone interested. That's all right. But I will talk in a minute as well about the repurposing thing as well. Okay, so content with images is 40 times more likely to be shared. You know, that's pretty compelling. There's been some debate on LinkedIn, and my jury, I have to say, is still out. I mean, this is a more general statistic across platforms, but I think that there's still place for an image personally. I think that people do like to see something. For that same reason, they can connect a bit more with it. And good content attracts 3 times the leads of paid search. And I can believe this because paid search, you know, is pretty much salesy, you know, and you're going after the converted, I suppose, if you like, really with that. But good content, you know, it is honestly, it's so powerful, and it will build a rapport with people that you then never goes away. And one of my favorite sayings is, I love a lurker. And there are lurkers all over the place, believe me. They are there and they are watching, and one day they will get in touch and you'll get a lovely piece of work out of it. It's happened to me a few times and it's brilliant. And I always start going, I love a lurker when that happens. But don't feel that just because you're kind of pushing into a void, which you are with social media really, that there's not stuff going on behind the scenes. There is, I guarantee it. Right, repurposing. So I just wanted to give an example of something you could do. Let's say, for example, you've written a blog, 500 worder, it's on your website, because obviously you're going to post all your blogs to your website, aren't you? Because that's good for your website and keeps it ranking on Google. And therefore you've got a link to it. So the next thing you're going to do is create a LinkedIn post, and that is going to have a very sort of short, paragraph long intro that tells people what the blog's about and has the link to the blog. I believe on latest research, but again, I'm a little bit like that with the algorithms because you can turn yourself inside out. I believe that it's better now to put the link in your post than on the comments, because apparently if you comment with it and other people comment, then that drives the link further down. So I think there's not much difference in reach if you put the link in your post. So I've started to do that again now. So your LinkedIn post goes up, literally, your 1 paragraph needs writing for that. If you are a Twitterer, and I know it's a very acquired taste, you could go on ad infinitum on here, because you literally would just pull some sound bites from your blog, some nice sentences, post them and sort of say, if you want to know more, here's a link to the blog. So you can imagine how, any quotes, any statistics, anything that's a nugget is great for Twitter. I'm not a Twitterer, whatever they're called, because I just don't have the time. But, that's obviously how that works. Instagram, then, to come back to the question we just had, really, obviously you're going to be looking for either a post or a story, but you've got an image leading there. So you can make multiple points. One of the things I love doing on Instagram is thinking about a blog topic that I've written, coming up with an image that hopefully is a bit left field, because that's what makes people think. And obviously some of the stock imagery is deadly, and Instagram's not really about that anyway. So you want to try and pick up something that, let's take Julia's blossom tree as an example, and talk about what that image conveys that links back to your blog. And I'm going to show you an example of how to do this later, because I'm aware that I'm saying it like it's the easiest thing because I do it every day, but it's not necessarily. So the idea there is, if you were talking about something like new beginnings, like January coming up, we're all going to start talking about new beginnings. But the internet then, or the feeds get a bit boring, don't they? Because everyone says the same thing. Same as Valentine's Day, where everyone says, do you love whatever? Try and be a bit different and try and come up with something that, for example, new beginnings, you might talk about nature, and that's a good way of obviously coming up with, if there's some snowdrops, you spot some snowdrops, you take a picture of them, and then you can link that back to the fact that you've just actually done a blog post about how to get your business ready for the new year. So it's just being a little bit less predictable. You can still use those themes and they work because they are relevant themes, but I think it's nice to try and mix it up a bit. And obviously on Instagram, you can perhaps be a bit more informal with your pictures. I think it's a bit more about you, isn't it? So, and again, you can do multiple points on that. Ista toy. I saw this and thought of you. That stands for I saw this and thought of you. Now we're back to our the power behind some of the stuff we write, and especially the thought leadership stuff. Okay, or right on the opposite extreme, you've come across a killer statistic that you know is really, really relevant to your audience. Okay, if you've got some connections on LinkedIn, for example, that you're trying to keep warm or warm up, and you know, maybe you want to sell, but obviously we're not going to do that, you can go over to your messages and you can send someone an Ista toy. I saw this and thought of you. Link it to your blog or to your post on LinkedIn or whatever it is that you found, and just literally say that. God, this really reminded me of you. You know, hope business is good. Whatever, however you're, you know, it depends on what your link with them is, but that's a really powerful way of reminding someone that you're there. Especially if you are in a service-based business, because you can send something that's very relevant to being, you know, on top of your game, which of course you are, and then you'll just remind them of that. So it's a nice subtle way of getting back in touch with people. Testimonials with links, absolutely. If you write a blog about something that you deliver, a service that you deliver and why it's good, you can put testimonials in that directly underline that from your existing customers' point of view. And then video posts or YouTube. So we've kind of covered that a little bit, but you know, I have started to do probably about 50-50 on my LinkedIn. Actually, I've done a lot more video lately. And again, it's just about reaching your audience in different ways and giving them different ways to take on board what you're saying. So I think it's just a case of mixing it up. And do you know what? I actually I have no professional setup. I put Zoom on, I open a meeting, I record myself and I post it, and it is raw, but do you know what, it gets it up there. If I wait until I get around to getting myself a more professional setup, then it will never happen. So I'm just going with it, and to be fair, I've had some really good responses. So I think, you know, don't worry about the detail, just do it. It's better out than out perfectly. Okay, how are we doing for time? Not too bad. Right, I'll crack on. Okay, hooks and bridges. Now this, oh, Nicole, did you have your hand up?
I did. I just wanted to sort of add to that exactly what you're saying about repurposing. I think when I've spoken to clients before, they want, was that a bit lazy just to repeat things? And it's not. And it's trying to get that point across. Like you say, if you've made the investment with yourself or you've done your own writing, it's why not repurpose that content? Because people won't always see it first time. It might not resonate first time because they're not in a certain position or in a certain situation. And if it's sort of repeated and drip fed to them, it's much more likely to get across. And also, if you've invested time with yourself, like you've done some great blogs for me, why not milk them for all you can? It's not lazy. It's not being... No,
yeah. That's a really good point, Nicole. I think we all suffer from this feeling that whenever we put something out, everyone in our world sees it, and they don't. You know, that's your 7 touches of marketing, Nicole, isn't it? Which you'll know far more about than I do. But it's also the fact that social media it doesn't show everybody everything every time. So you're not going to become across as repetitive. So that's a really good point. Yeah, and bear that in mind. And actually, you know, if you're banging the drum, so presumably you're banging it for a reason. So fair enough to get your point out a few times. So yeah, okay, right, hooks and bridges. So what I'm going to do is take you through a worked example here, and then we're going to send you off into breakout rooms for about 10 minutes, hopefully, maybe slightly less, depending on time, and get you to do an example. I've got some silly stories that you can use and bring them back to your businesses. Okay, so we'll do that in a second. Right, first of all though, let's talk you through hooks and bridges. So this is a formulaic way of writing a post, which means it's repeatable, and you will get some good things. You can take some photos, I suggest, actually, of the screen at times, just to get the list of hooks and things, but I'll talk you through it a bit more slowly. So what is a hook? Well, a hook is exactly what it sounds like. It's something that hooks people. It gets their attention and hopefully keeps it. The sources of hooks can be really from anything, but it's good if they are interesting. So, anecdotes. case studies. So you'll be looking at we're looking at a sentence here, a very sort of short intro piece. So something amazing that someone has said about you. Someone once made up a word in a testimonial about me. I'm not going to be able to remember what it was now. Anyway, I'll try and remember. But to say, or someone made a word up about me today, you know, that's really, what's that then? That's a bit interesting. It'll make people look twice. News items, yeah. I mean, obviously, if it's relevant to what you do, then it can be great to say, you know, there's a headline gone out about this, and it's very of the moment. Facts and figures, obviously, the more bizarre the statistic, the better, really, because it gets people's interest. But equally valuable. Always add value. Okay, so we're having a bit of fun here, but that's okay, provided we're adding value in the whole scheme of things. Right, so I'm going to show you an example of one I did earlier. Apologies if anyone's attended anything I've done before, because I have used this one a few times, but I do love it. Did you know that the Mona Lisa has no eyebrows? Crazy, right? One of the most popular, if not the most popular portrait paintings in the world, and there's a major facial detail missing. Right, that's my hook, okay? Because hopefully most people think, what is she going on about? And that's good if it means they watch me or they read more. Right, bridges. These are magic, literally, okay? This is a list of amazing sentences you can put in any blog after your hook, or any post, sorry, that just mean that after them you can write whatever you like, which means that you can go segue from the hook, which could be so far removed from your business, it's unbelievable, i.e. Mona Lisa, and bring it back to your business point, which is the whole purpose, obviously. And doing this means you can make any topic your topic, which maximizes your opportunity of bringing stuff into your business, which might be, you know, accountancy, no offense to anyone, or any of the service businesses, actually. You know, we can be a bit dry. It can be a bit dry, so we need to be able to bring stuff in. Okay, so hopefully you've taken a picture of that slide, or I can share the slides afterwards anyway. Right, go back to my worked example. Did you know the Mona Lisa has no eyebrows? Blah, blah, blah. There's a major facial detail missing. In fact, now I've just put a little bit extra in here, which is if you were doing a longer form blog. In fact, according to the Telegraph, technology has been able to see long faded traces of a left eyebrow, leading experts to believe they once existed, but they've been obscured by years of age and many restorations. So why am I telling you this? There's my bridge, okay? Magic. Right. Sorry, there's a lot of text on the page. So why am I telling you this? Well, and this is a completely fictitious example, at Amazing Architects, I'm just going to minimize my screen showing you because I can't see my screen. We pride ourselves in building spaces that only gain more with age. Our extensions start with the wow factor, but after years of happy time spent living in your new home, your memories and family experiences will only enrich the picture. Okay, so you get it. I could brought that back to something completely random, just by picking up on the fact that it's a facial detail, and yeah, this is the sort of thing I'm talking about. Now that was a bit of a gallop, but what I've actually done, I'm just going to stop sharing for a minute, is I've come up with some silly stories, because it's always easy to do a silly one, that are similar to the Mona Lisa. So little known facts or silly stories, and I'm going to post them in the chat. And then Julia's going to put you guys into breakouts. I don't know if you want to do 2s and a 3, Julia, maybe. And then I just want you guys to pick one of them. So when I put it in the chat, I'm going to ask you to perhaps take a photo of it, if that's the easiest way, because it will disappear, the chat, when you go into breakout. And then I'm going to basically ask you to come up with short posts like the one you've just seen, using one of these stories related either to your business or to a fictitious business. The point really is just in you practicing the hooks and bridges, okay? Oh, it won't let me copy and paste. Why won't it let me do that? I want more. Bear with me. Why won't it let me copy and paste from Word? Weird, isn't it?
Are you doing Control C and Control V?
Yeah. Try again. Hang on.
Can you right click and do it that way? Andy?
Can you do it? Can you try it from the menu bar? Because I find with a Mac that's more effective. So if you go up to the menu bar, go into edit.
It's done it. It's done it with the copy and paste words. It's the shortcuts it doesn't like. Okay, right. But thank you. That was oh, hang on. It's okay. I'm gonna put 3 up. It's run out of characters, obviously. I'm just gonna do the ones that I've got, and then I'm gonna do a last one finally. There's one more. Short. So all you need to do really is pick one of these. All very random, but hopefully you can find a way of bringing it back to either a fictitious business, your business, one of the businesses of the people in there. And then we should have time to share a few afterwards if people are willing. Okay, so hooks and bridges. If everyone's happy, take a photo or copy and paste into your own chat, okay? And what do you think, Julia? Till 12 o'clock, 7 minutes?
Yep.
Okay, we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for good efforts all round. Hopefully we're all back. So Mitt has just asked a question, which I'm just gonna repose and answer with everyone here. How do we measure the results of content where, for example, as you said, there's some things are like the paid stuff is a lot more quantifiable. Now, this is, hands up if you're in any way involved in marketing, but this is the bane of our lives is the ROI, because it's so hard. It's not tangible always. But I think measuring the success and the impact of content is getting easier, because there are now so many. It's such a big industry now. There's some really good industry leaders who are producing reports and statistics. Now, again, it's still somewhat anecdotal, but it's better than we used to have. And you've got people like HubSpot who do reports regularly. Sprout Social or another one. They all do these reports that look at what people are looking for with content. So we've got that element of where to look from those. But in terms of the return on investment, I think it's never going to be in pounds and pence, because it's impossible to bridge that. However, you can look at conversions from followers to business and things like that. So you can look at, so for example, I've got I get business from LinkedIn, and I know that that's directly as a result of what I put out on LinkedIn, because I don't have any other connections with these people, and I see them look at my profile, I link up with them, and now I do business with them. So the way that I would test my content is to look at how many outreaches do I need to do in order to get a client on board. And that by outreaches, I'm talking about it's the micro side of the content. So I'm sending content in messages like the Easter toy and just the networking side of it. But the content I've put up on my feed is what they've seen initially that's attracted me. So I think there's a bit around measuring that and not really measuring the obvious things like likes, because although they're easy to see, they don't necessarily mean anything. And in fact, LinkedIn is changing the way it's looking at things like dwell time. So there are ways you can use technology to help understand some of that stuff, but that's quite a big investment really, and I'm not sure it's right for smaller businesses. But it is really about, I guess, analysing the activity that you're undertaking and then trying to assign a value to that. That would be and it's not black and white answer, because there isn't a physical way of making it, but I do think that the stats are telling us that people now are doing business. And obviously, I would always ask anybody I meet how they've come across me, why they think they should connect. So every LinkedIn connection that comes into me will get a response that says, thanks for connecting. If obviously I'll check them out first. Some I don't connect with, but most I do. And I'll say, can I ask what it was about my profile or my content that's attracted you? Because it's a fair question. We're connecting, we're networking, we should be building relationship. And every single person that connects with me gets that question, and it starts a conversation. And then I can then track through that. Am I attracting the right people? So it does start to give it a value, but it's a lot more convoluted than the boards like to see, which is annoying because they love a number, don't they? A pound sign. Has anyone got anything you want to add to that? Nicole, you do a lot of measuring, don't you?
Yeah, no, that sort of sums it up. Like you say, it's a quality quantity thing as well, isn't it? But equally, as well as asking people how they heard from you, if when you're making a note of your sales and where you've got business from, it's making a note of who those people are that give you that, because it might be a referral, it might be a LinkedIn thing, it might be a networking thing, it might be a whoever thing. But it's taking a note of that, and then you'll start to see patterns as well with where your leads come from, and it's doing more or less of those kind of things. So, yeah,
it's interesting actually. Yeah, you're right. It's more of an analytical thing, Met, really, because one of the things I like doing is I send out my MailChimp newsletter, which I'm actually going to start doing every other month for a bit. I have been doing it monthly, but I'm going to try it every other month because I have a feeling that impacts on click rates. I'm just doing a bit of testing. I send that out. I can, then I don't know if you use MailChimp, but it gives you the click map and you can see where people have clicked. And one of my most recent customer acquisitions was I'd put a few different, obviously, articles in my newsletter. One of my people who signed up to my list had clicked on this "How to Grow Your Business" title, and I thought that's interesting. So that's his, he's interested in business growth. So I sent him an Istatoy that was all about how content can grow your business, and he's now a client, and that took about 2 months. So it's all about everything working together. It's all about all of your platforms. So for example, you might look at your website analytics and you might see that somebody's looking at a certain blog or a certain page. That gives you a feel for where they are, what they're interested in. You can then jump on that through LinkedIn, because I sent him the thing through LinkedIn because we were only connected through my DIS list and obviously on LinkedIn. Sent him the thing, got a bit of chat going. Next thing I know, he's a client. So that's evidence, isn't it? That's a measurement if you want it, because that's an actual new client. So I think it's about trying to and sometimes I guess this is where the line of work that we do, you have to sort of collaborate with other businesses, because actually what you might want to do is talk to people who do some of that analytics software, or and talk about how they could advance your cause and vice versa. Really, I think collaborating and going into a client that way could be quite powerful.
There's so much, isn't there, to discuss?
There is, yeah.
With all of this, it's just incredible. How did people? Should we bring it back to the work, to the little breakout session?
Yeah. Do you want
to share?
Yeah. Does anyone have one that they want to share quickly?
Jim.
Why me? Well, we Joanna and Sarah and I decided we wanted to grasp the elephant dung beer.
Oh yeah.
That's the one that for some reason captured our imaginations, and actually we linked that in with earlier this week. It was Cappuccino Awareness Day.
All right.
I mean, there's a lot of awareness days, and you might already be aware of cappuccino, but maybe you're not. So we linked that in, and each one of us managed to kind of bring that with varying degrees of clumsiness back to our own businesses. But we did, and it was great fun and entertaining, and we all smiled a lot. And actually, there was energy and positivity there that I wasn't expecting to come from elephant dung beer.
That's why I fit those sorts of stories. I mean, just so you're aware, you can literally Google crazy facts and it will bring up several websites that bring these things up. And, I think that, whilst I wouldn't suggest building your entire content strategy on that, I think it's a really cool thing to interject now and again. And the awareness days is another great point, actually, because there are a lot of them and they are brilliant ways to make your point as well with a very relevant post. So yeah, that's another good example.
So we used the same example, and I think the conversation around it was that you have to find a news article that sort of fits your personality or your natural sense of humor or witticism or whatever it may be, because we couldn't, I'm not witty enough to have used the Manhattan example, because I can't do that. I don't do it in day-to-day life, but elephant dung is right at my level.
Humor.
But we also managed to link it quite neatly. So for me, the linkage was, I mean, first of all, I wondered whether they mistyped it and it was a huge shit, because I think that's equally accurate. But in the IT world, we often refer to the world of IT as being a bit of a murky wading through excrement. And unless you particularly enjoy that for beer or for coffee or in your day-to-day IT, then we can take that pain away, the smell away. Let us wade through or sift through the shit for you. But it also worked very well for Julie's, because Julie offers, a coffee to potential clients, and now she can add a coffee or a beer that's passed through an animal to the menu for her initial discussions. I think we came to the conclusion or collective memory that there's a cat in Indonesia that eats coffee beans, and the world's most expensive coffee, I think, comes from the beans collected afterwards.
Brilliant. I know, who knows? I mean, but that's the thing, isn't it? That's what I love about it. You can bring out, I mean, we talked about the one where you are taller in the morning, but that, if you take it right back to kind of, a business message, perception is something that comes out there, isn't it? Because the perception is that you're taller or shorter, and you're actually taller or shorter. You may not have that perception, but you are. And I think that's where perception can be wound into any business, in terms of what your audience perceive to be their problem, and the fact that actually you can solve that really quickly and easily. It's not really a big challenge, although their perception might be that it is. So it's at different levels, and you're absolutely right. It does need to, and then we go back then, of course, to the authenticity right at the beginning. So it has to be authentic to you. If you suddenly start posting random crazy stories, people might be like, what's going on? But there's different degrees of how random that needs to be, I think. So yeah, brilliant, good shares. Okay, questions? Got 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe?
Yeah, does anybody have any questions for Emma based on content, or any observations about content that they've seen really work for them, or content that have just been like tumbleweed and they don't quite know why? Who would like to?
Nicole?
I got a question. When you mentioned your thought leadership pieces, obviously the longer pieces and blogs, with blogs you might do 1 or 2 a month. With the thought leadership, do you think should that be as frequent, or are they more?
Yeah, no, I would say most people that I do thought leadership for, it's 1 a month, unless you are on a trajectory whereby you might be launching, like setting up a startup or launching a product, a big major kind of new service or product, where you do want to flood, and in some cases, because of course you don't have to post everything in the same place, so you might just be wanting to get a few bits and bobs sort of out to different, even if you're sending some to publications, or you're putting others on LinkedIn, or you're putting some on your website. So normally 1 a month is good, because they are quite, and also just purely in terms of having the topics, they're not 10 a penny. These need to have depth and breadth to them. So yeah, I mean, I've got a newish client who we had an hour on the Zoom, I should say, not on the phone, and I pitched 2 ideas to him, and he's gone with both, but he's not really done very much content for ages. So yeah, he needs to kind of start establishing himself. But yeah, 1 a month is plenty on those, I would say. Yeah. Anyway.
The meeting does officially finish at 12:15, but we do often hang around for extra time, so don't feel that you have to go. You need to do, and Emma's here as well, aren't you, Emma? Just for
yeah. And I've put my links in the chat, so do connect with me if we're not already connected. And I do. I'm going to start doing it a bit more regularly, but I've done a Ask Me Anything type post on LinkedIn, where I then do a little video clip to answer the question. So that's good as well. Thank you, Bammy. So yeah, anything like that, I'm always happy to answer questions. So yeah, just feel free to fire them in. But yeah.
Has anybody had any content that has worked like super well that they would like to share?
We had one where so we write articles in our business, and we try and keep the momentum. This year especially, we've tried to be disciplined about writing one a week or 1 every 2 weeks, and they've all got reasonably low engagement. And then I wrote a post on LinkedIn where what we'd done was we donated some of our product to a local school to measure staff well-being, and that what that had, I can't even remember the vanity metrics involved in it, but it was lots and lots of people, and that turned into a couple of leads. People messaged me directly and privately to say, can we have a chat? So it resonates really well with what you were saying earlier, Emma, about personalizing this stuff and letting the human behind the business come through.
It's hugely powerful. It's and you know, I think it's something that perhaps we have resisted in the past. I mean, LinkedIn, you know, is in that weird place at the moment, I think, where it is moving, and I'm seeing a lot more sharing. But I think if it's done with the intentions of adding value to your audience and genuinely sharing a good cause, or, you know, then I think that is a really good thing to do. It doesn't mean, of course, that people aren't looking at your other content. It's just that people will feel more comfortable responding to something like that, because they can literally say, what an amazing thing to do. That's an easy comment to share. When it comes to something more specifically kind of technical, if that's the right word, people will feel, oh, you know, I don't feel empowered to make a comment on that. So we're just a bit, it's the lurkers again, you know. But of course, the thing is that as you post a post like that and it gets a great response, you're increasing your following and you're increasing your reach, and every little extra person that you pick up along that journey will still see some of that other stuff, and therefore will be reading it. So it's about the mix. But on, you know, without a shadow of a doubt, people buy people, and that's why it's so important, really, to, you know, to have that as part of your content mix.
Yeah, I like the way you phrased it earlier when you said it increases your rapport with people, which isn't something I'd thought about from
all about relationships. Yeah, it really is. And, you know, some of the stuff that I look at, and occasionally I'll publish sort of the stats and things, the evidence is there. People are really about the content. I think there's a stat that says people they consume on average 5 to 7 pieces of content before buying. So you are, you know, they are doing that. They are actively going out, and this is all B2B stuff, but for most of us that's probably relevant. But it's you know, people are going out there and they are reading what people have to say, even if, quite frankly, it's just to get a sense that they are credible and they are, you know, almost kind of educated enough to post, you know. And if you're not posting, you're definitely not getting noticed. So it's kind of finding your way and what works for you in terms of what you put out there. Yeah, but yes, it is very powerful with the personal stuff. Yeah, I hate the fact that if you put a picture of a dog up, it really works. It makes me want to give my job up. But actually, you know what, I love a picture of a dog as well. So, you know, you can't beat it. But you wouldn't become a leader in your field if you only did that, I think, is the thing. And it's talk of like challenger brands. So for us, when we're as we, you know, most of us probably are a smaller business, you know, to challenge a big household name is very difficult. But actually, to put out a really rich piece of personal content that's very, very heartwarming is far more easy for us to do that than the big brands, because the brands can't do it under their brand name, because they'll be accused of it. People get cynical straight away, whereas if we do it, we're a business owner, we're a person, people can identify with us and we'll get far more reach. So it's about kind of leveraging that, really, and then being able to be a challenger brand, because you can build that rapport before you become more known as a brand than a person, if that makes sense. It's a great leveler, the internet. It really is, or social media, I should say, is a great leveler.
It's interesting what you said about LinkedIn changing, Emma, because I definitely feel like that. And it's, to be honest, it's been why I've not really done very much on it, because I hated it. I hated trying to fit into that corporate language, because it took me back to those days when I was in corporate, and I was like, that's not me. It's not authentic. I can't be here. I'm now learning to write from what comes from my heart, and when I do, I get better results. I get more conversations, which is what I want, because I want to build the relationships. That's the way I build my business, is built on relationships. It's not built on mass sales. Although sales is important.
It's a part of it. But you know, don't forget, we're there for a reason. Everyone's there for the same reason. We are there to network and grow our business. So there's nothing wrong with people knowing that you're there to do business. It's just about how you do it and what you expect from someone who maybe doesn't know you very well. So when you get these connections that then start firing sales messages at you, it's just annoying, because you're kind of like, well, hang on a minute, I know loads of fabulous people that I'd love to do business with. you know, before you, because I don't know you, right? You haven't built the trust. So it's just about that etiquette, really. But I think with LinkedIn, the other thing I say, because lots of people are scared. I mean, what are the stats? They're mental, aren't they, for LinkedIn? There's several 100,000, more like 600,000-700,000 users, and there's about million, I should say, and there's about 60 million that actually post. It's like less than a tenth. It's tiny. And so what I say to people who are scared of posting on LinkedIn, which is most people, is if you have the right audience, if your tribe are following you, then they will want to hear what you have to say. If people are going, oh, I don't really buy into that, well, that's not a problem. They won't read it. They'll scroll past, they'll unfollow you, whatever they do. It's the same as the email diss list. Don't be fooled by the number of people on it. It doesn't matter. If they're never going to buy from you, then you're wasting your energy. So you're better off having a list of 10 absolutely avid, I really, really want to find a reason to do business with this person, than you are having 100 who might skim it through or don't even open the emails, you know. So it's quality, absolutely quality, not quantity.
So I have a question about, actually, when you're talking about emails, it's so important, isn't it, to get that subject line right? And I really struggle on that. Do you have any hints or tips around, you know, in enticing subject?
Yeah, there's a tool actually that you can use called a headline analyzer. I think it's by a company called CoSchedule. It's free, although they will try to make you pay, but you don't have to. And you literally paste your headline into a box and it gives you a score out of 100. So I'm always looking at 80 plus for anything I do for my clients. And you can tweak it. You can do it live, keep tweaking it. And what it will do is it give you a little bit of analysis on the free version that talks about the different types of words you've got in there. So active, emotional words, all the rest of it. You can totally crash and burn your headline. I've done that before, but trying to follow them. Again, it's like everything, pinch of salt. You know, you have to be able to say what you need to say. And it is an AI thing. So yeah, but broadly, yes, you can absolutely improve your headline that way. Questions are always good. People love a question. I think, yeah, I mean, it depends. So if it's whether it's a blog title or a newsletter title, it's kind of the same, really. It needs to be a certain number of words. I think when on this one, it's more for the shorter headlines. There is a tool. Actually, I found a tool that did it for your LinkedIn. You know, your summary piece that goes under your name, the really short bit. There's a tool somewhere. I'll try and find it and post it in the group, actually. But that analyzes that. So that's a slightly longer statement, but it gives you. But I have to say, I think you've got to watch the authenticity. So you've got to have a balance, because the more you make it work for an algorithm, in all honesty, the less it works for a person, I think. So I'm very much one of its copywriters' creative tension, which is SEO versus real. Every time I'll go for real, because I think you're trying to influence people. I mean, the algorithm will help you to do that, but it's not it's not going to buy from you. So yeah, I think, but definitely the headline analyzer is a good one to do. The second thing that I would say that I've just been doing more of again is the A/B testing, which is really interesting, although arguably the numbers I'm dealing with are not really high enough, because you need thousands, I think, to make it really work. But it worked for me. I mean, as I say, I got a really good open rate off the back of one of those. And I think that, you know, does work.
So when you're talking about A/B testing, you're talking about the actual content being the same, but the headline will be different.
Yeah, so 2 headlines, or you can do 3. You can do as many as you like, I think, but I did 2 headlines that were focusing on different angles. So I'm trying to think of an example, but you might focus on something being free advice, or you might focus on the actual advice itself, you know. And sometimes just having the word free in the headline, they're in, you know. It's just incredible. It's just psychology, isn't it, really? But it is interesting. And I suppose what MailChimp does for you is it sends them out to a sample, half and half. I think you can tell it as well roughly where you want that to be, and then it does, after 4 hours, it sends the most popular open rate one to the remainder of the list. So interesting stuff. Yeah, and I know I should do more of it really, but it comes down to what people want really from their content. And it's like everything, it's finding that balance between getting too wrapped up in the algorithm and just going for it, because quite honestly, the more you post, the more you will become known. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Emma. Does anybody else have any questions or would like to ask for some help or would like to share something that's really, really worked for them?
Sorry, it's just a quick question, because this is something I'm constantly dealing with, because I've got two separate groups of clients. So I've got organizations and then I've got individuals. And I'm always like torn between the two, because in terms of sharing normally on LinkedIn or whatever like that, that I do a lot of, because I'll share from my experience and everything like that, because my lived experience informs my work as well as my expertise. But when it comes to, especially on my website and blogs and everything like that, I get stumped because I'm like, who am I supposed to write to today? Do you have any advice on that?
So when you say you've got organizations and people, are they both on, thanks Mitt, are they both on looking at separate services that you provide, or are they?
Yes, so that's the thing. They're separate in a way, but it's health that connects all of them. So basically, I talk a lot about cancer, I talk a lot about health equity and patient stuff and everything. So
okay, so for me, I would be very inclined to go through the organizations and find the person within that. Julia's got a great ebook on finding your avatar, but trying to understand who the person within those organization is that is going to be is the decision maker essentially. So who is it that you would want to influence? And it might be that there's 3 or 4, but actually if you can work your way through, keep the organizations, obviously you've got them as that's, your sort of end client, but there'll be a person within that you need to influence, and that can really then impact on how you write your content. Because if that person is a technical person, for example, I did a piece of work a while back now for a medical piece of kit, and they needed to influence the doctors because it was them that were going to say this is what we need in our hospital. But actually in the NHS, as we all know, it's not the doctors that have got the purse strings. So there were 2 angles to go in at, and one was a technical piece around what the properties of this piece of kit were and how it was going to help the surgeons, and the other was about money and about the cost benefits, because thanks, Julie. Because that was what the procurement team were going to look at. So there's not a quick and easy answer, unfortunately. It is about understanding, as Julie would say, who your ideal client avatar is and how you access them. But I would recommend doing that exercise, and if you need to, use Julia's form, but do it 3 or 4 times over if that's what you have to do.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, that's cool. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. It was amazing.